The Momentum Masterclass, a deep dive into beating procrastination. Let me take you back to a specific, very quiet afternoon at the Radio Sai studio in Puttaparthi. If you have ever felt like your body and your mind are in a relentless tug of war, you will understand the gravity of this moment. I was sitting in my wheelchair. The room was absolutely silent. The only sound in that room was the steady, polite hum of the computer fan. It was a soft, rhythmic hum, but to me, in that moment, it sounded like it was laughing at me. Look at him, the computer fan seemed to whisper. He's got all the massive ideas, he has stories to tell, but he's just sitting there like a statue of a guy who wants to be productive, yeah? Well, I desperately wanted to record audios and edit videos. The screen in front of me was glowing with the interface of Adobe Premiere Pro, but there was a glaring, painful disconnect. My fingers were not on board with the palm, with a plan. Because of a severe spinal cord injury, my hands were basically on a permanent vacation without even my permission. I looked down at the keyboard. To most people, a keyboard is just a piece of paper, a piece of plastic, I mean, an everyday tool you spill coffee on. But to me, the keyboard looked like Mount Everest. It was cold, hard, and utterly impossible to scale. I would sit in that chair for hours, having intense, silent arguments with me. Raghu, just move your hand, it's right there. But I can't, bro. Okay, well, how about we just do it tomorrow? Tomorrow we'll feel stronger. Yeah, that's a great idea, Raghu. You are a genius. And then I would roll out myself out of the studio and go home. Well, friends, tomorrow is a magical, mythical land where I have pack abs, a perfectly finished book, and brilliantly edited videos ready to go viral. But let me tell you the harsh truth. Tomorrow is a liar. Tomorrow is the most dangerous word in the English dictionary. I was completely stuck in what I call the overwhelmed loop. The task in front of me was like a giant, extra large pizza, and I was trying to swallow it whole without even a single glass of water. It was choking me. Before you can begin to fix this problem of procrastination, we need to drag a massive lie out into the light and address it. From a very young age, we are told that we need this magical elixir called motivation. We are taught to wait for a spark. We wait for the right vibe, the right time. We wait for the universe to align its stars and send us a flaming sign, which usually ends up being a YouTube video of a very loud guy screaming at us to rise and grind. Let me tell you something, friends. Motivation is like the weather in Bangalore. It's beautiful one minute and rainy in the next. You cannot build a career or pass a competitive exam based on something as unstable as the weather. I sat in that Radio Sai studio waiting for motivation for days. I waited for a sudden burst of energy and it never showed up. It didn't even send me a polite text message to say it was running late. But as I sat there, staring at the blinking cursor on the screen, something else showed up. I looked at my paralyzed hands. I didn't have the strength to type a novel. I didn't have the dexterity to use the keyboard shortcuts. But I realized with a sudden jolt of clarity that I could probably poke just one key if I threw all my effort into it. So I dug around and found a splint, a palmer pocket. This is basically a medical fancy way of saying I tightly strap a rigid tool to my palm to force my hand to do what my nerves couldn't. I lifted my hand. It was agonizingly slow. It shook like a dried leaf caught up in a massive thunderstorm. I aimed for the keyboard. I let gravity do the heavy lifting, and tap. I typed the letter A. Well, friends, it wasn't a masterpiece. It wasn't the opening line to a bestseller. It wasn't Shakespeare writing to be or not to be. It was just letter A. But let me tell you, staring at the screen, it was the most beautiful, triumphant A I had ever seen in my 22 years of life, That single letter shattered the illusion that I was entirely powerless. If you are a student right now listening to this, preparing for a brutal competitive exam, I know exactly what you are feeling. Your mountain isn't a plastic keyboard. Your mountain is that terrifying 1500-page syllabus that you are currently using as a pillow to cry on. You look at the pile of textbooks and your brain just freezes. You're not lazy, my friend. I need you to hear that. You're not a bad student. You're simply overwhelmed, just like I was in the studio. So how do we dismantle the mountain? Here is the exact 6-step momentum blueprint to break it down step by step until you are unstoppable. So let's get into it. Are you ready? Step 1. Shrink your start. The 5-minute rule. The absolute hardest part of studying isn't the actual act of learning the material. The hardest part is the physical, geographical act of moving your human body from the soft comfort of your bed to the hard reality of your study desk. That's it. Let's look at a case study. Take Rahul, a bright student preparing for NEET exam. Rahul had to study organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is notoriously difficult. Even every single time Rahul looked at that thick textbook, his brain would instantly calculate the pain. His internal dialogue went like this. This is going to take 6 hours of brutal focus. 6 hours is basically a jail sentence, I cannot survive 6 hours right now. Let's go see what random strangers are eating on Instagram instead. And just like that, 3 hours would vanish. Rahul was paralyzed by the size of the commitment. Well, the fix is almost simple. I told Rahul, see, do not study for 6 hours. You are only allowed to sit down for exactly 5 minutes. Read one definition. If after 5 minutes you want to stop, you have my full permission to close the book and go back to scrolling those Instagram snacks, Now, friends, why does this work? Because 5 minutes is incredibly easy. 5 minutes feels safe to a panicked brain. But here is the psychological magic. Once Rahul sat down, opened the book, and read the first paragraph, the massive friction of starting was gone. His brain realized that organic chemistry wasn't actually a tiger waiting to bite his face off, He was already in the chair. The book was already open. It was suddenly much easier to just keep going, even after 5 minutes. So this way, you have to trick your brain. Do not feel bad about it. Your brain is actually quite easy to fool. You think about it. This is the same brain that genuinely believes getting a like on a digital photo is a life-changing, monumental achievement. Yeah, give it a ridiculously small starting goal and watch the resistance melt away. Now let's come to step 2. Fix a time and a place. The sacred desk. Human beings suffer from a very real condition called decision fatigue. You wake up with a limited battery of willpower. If you spend 20 minutes every single morning negotiating with yourself about where you are going to study, you are bleeding battery power before you even open a book. Should I sit by window? No, the birds are chirping too loudly and they look judgmental today. Yeah. Maybe the kitchen table? No. The refrigerator keeps calling my name here. And I think there's leftover paneer. So if you do this, you have already lost the battle for the day. Now let's talk about Priyank, a brilliant but scattered UPSC candidate. Priyank used to study wherever he felt the vibe, yeah. One day he was sprawled on the sofa. The next day he was at a noisy coffee shop. The day after that he was sitting cross-legged on his bed. Because his environment was in a constant state of chaos, his brain was permanently in tourist mode. Yes, in tourist mode, I mean. It was always scanning the new environment, looking at the ceiling fan, looking at everything except the Constitution of India. What matters actually? We had to intervene. We created what I call the sacred desk. We picked one specific desk in the corner of his room. No snacks allowed, no phones allowed, just his books, a pen, and a lamp. Eventually, through his sheer reputation, his brain became like a highly trained puppy. When he sat in that specific wooden chair at exactly 6 a.m. in the morning, his brain didn't need to be convinced to work. The environment did the heavy lifting. The chair sent a signal to his nervous system. Oh, I know this place. This is where we act like we are going to rule the country. Shut down the distractions. Let's work. Yeah, isn't that amazing? So if you want to build momentum, you must build a sanctuary, my friend. Okay, now let's come to step 3. Use micro targets. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is sitting down and declaring, I am going to study math today. You know, saying you are going to study math is like saying you are going to drink the ocean. It is impossible. It is vague and it is terrifying. Your brain does not know what done looks like when the goal is that massive. So what's the fix? It's very simple. You must use micro targets. Instead of a massive subject, slice it down to the bone. In the exact next 30 minutes, I am going to solve exactly 3 problems about equilateral triangles. Nothing else. When you finish those 3 specific problems, your brain gets a hit of dopamine. Dopamine is the molecule of motivation and reward. It is literally a tiny chemical party in your head. Yeah? When you achieve a micro target, you feel victorious. And the human nature is simple. Winners want to keep playing the game. Friends, when I am teaching students how to memorize massive amounts of information, I always stress the importance of breaking things down. For instance, when we use visualization and association to remember complex lists, I remind them that this is a precise technique, not a game. Yeah? If you treat it like a serious step-by-step technique, your brain respects the process. You visualize one item, you associate one concept, step by step, micro target by micro target. Now let's come to step 4. Remove the friction, the phone prison. I need you to look at the smartphone sitting next to you right now. Yeah, that device, my friend, is not your friend. It is not an innocent tool. It is a tiny, glowing, rectangular thief that is actively designed by thousands of smartest engineers in Silicon Valley to steal your future, one notification at a time. Let me introduce you to Anish. Anish was a JEE aspirant. The kid was an absolute math genius, but he suffered from a severe notification twitch. Every single time his phone buzzed on his desk, his neck snapped toward the screen faster than a Formula One car, Even if he didn't pick it up, his focus was broken. Studies show that after a distraction, it can take up to 20 minutes for your brain to get back into a state of deep flow. Anish was destroying his focus a dozen times an hour. So what's the fix? We instituted the phone prison. We didn't just put the phone face down. We put the phone in a completely different room. We put it inside a cardboard box. We put the box on the top of a shelf of a closet. Now, if Anish wanted to check a text message, he had to stop studying, stand up, walk down the hall, open the closet door, reach up his tiptoes and open the box. Open a box. Suddenly checking to see if his friend replied, LOL, LOL, felt like too much physical exercise. Because the friction of checking the phone was higher than the friction of doing the math problem. He just stayed at the desk. So the lesson, you must be incredibly lazy about your distractions and incredibly disciplined about your work. Make your bad habits brutally difficult to access. Now let's come to step 5. Track your progress. Don't break the chain. See, studying is a profoundly frustrating endeavor because you do not see the results immediately. If you go to the gym and lift weights for an hour, your muscles swell. You feel the pump. But if you study quantum physics for an hour, you don't suddenly grow a glowing smart person beard. You look exactly the same. Your brain craves visual proof that your suffering is worth it. Are you getting it? Let me repeat. Your brain craves for visual proof that your suffering is worth it. So what's the fix? You need a giant physical wall calendar. Not a digital app. A real piece of paper on your wall. Every single day you hit your micro target. You take a thick red marker and you draw a massive, satisfying red X over that day. After 4 or 5 days, you will start seeing a chain forming. Now, psychological shift happens. Your primary goal is no longer the vague idea of becoming an engineer in 2 years. Your immediate burning goal is simply, do not let this red line die. It sounds extremely silly and irrational, but human beings are wired for completion, my friend. We will do hours of grueling work just to avoid the pain of seeing a blank space on the color-coded line. Exploit that psychological quick. Build your chain. Okay, now let's come to the last step. Step 6. The bounce back rule. No 0 days. Let's have a moment of brutal honesty. You are going to have bad days. Some days you're just going to be an absolute disaster. The Wi-Fi will go down. You will wake up with a pounding headache. Your neighbors will decide that Tuesday morning is the perfect time to begin their heavy metal drumming career. You will feel sad, unmotivated, and exhausted. Yeah, that's obvious. That's natural. When this happens, the instinct to say, today is ruined, I will just write it off and start fresh tomorrow. Yeah. Now, that's not good. So what's the fix? You must adopt the philosophy of no 0 days. Even on your absolute worst, most miserable day, you are not allowed to do 0. If you cannot do your planned 4 hours of studying, do 4 minutes. Open the book, read one single paragraph, solve one single addition problem, stare at a map for 60 seconds. Yeah. Why? Because you are keeping the study muscle alive. You are preventing your hard-earned discipline from melting into procrastination jelly. See, missing 1 day is a mistake. It's an accident, but missing 2 days in a row is the beginning of a brand new habit, my friend. And bad habits form much faster than good ones. So choose your actions wisely, even when you are tired. Now, the battleground of the mind. Let's pull back the curtain and be deeply honest about the landscape of competitive exams. Preparing for those tests feel like being dropped into a massive battle where it seems like every other competitor has better weapons, a better brain, and more resources than you. You log on to LinkedIn or watch a YouTube vlog and you see people boasting about their 16-hour extreme study grinds. You have you have perfect aesthetic highlighters and color coding notes. You look at your messy desk and you feel like an absolute potato. The comparison is crushing you. See, friends, when I was in that radio size studio, paralyzed in my wheelchair, I felt exactly like that for a moment. I felt like I was moving in extremely slow motion while the rest of the world was zooming past me in fast forward. I felt entirely left behind. But sitting there, staring at the letter A on the screen, I had an epiphany. I am not in a race with the guy who has perfectly working hands. I am only in a race with the version of Raghu who wanted to stay in his bed this morning. Let me tell you a story of a student, Sneha. Sneha was preparing for grueling chartered accountancy CA exams. Yeah, by the time we spoke, she had failed her inter exam twice. The weight of those failures hung around her neck like an anvil. She was so terrified for failing a third time that she had developed a phobia of her own study materials. She wouldn't even touch her books. She treated her accounting textbooks like they were laced with radioactive poison or something. I am a failure, sir, she told me. Every time I look at the syllabus, I just remember the exact feeling of seeing the fail result on the screen. I stopped her right there. I told her, Sneha, I want you to completely abandon the idea of passing the CA exam. Stop trying to pass the exam. That goal is too big and it is traumatizing you. Now your only goal should be, starting today, is to beat the Sneha who gave up yesterday. So we implemented the 5-minute rule with extreme prejudice. I told her to sit at her desk, open the taxation book, and look at it for 5 minutes only. The first day she cried. She read half a page through blurry eyes, but she did it. The next day, she read a full page. The fear began to shrink because she was confronting it in bite-sized pieces. She stopped running. Slowly, those 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes and then into 30 minutes. 30 minutes turned into 2 hours. The mountain of CA syllabus did not magically get smaller, but Sneha became an infinitely stronger climber. She stopped crying, she started working, and eventually she started passing. The science of tricking your cowardly brain, that's easy. You might be wondering, why does this highly specific step-by-step system work so well? It works because, from an evolutionary standpoint, your brain is actually a bit of a coward. Deep inside your brain, there is an almond-shaped cluster of nuclei called the amygdala. Think of the amygdala. Amygdala has a highly caffeinated, incredibly nervous security guard whose only job is to keep you safe from danger. When you look at your schedule and tell yourself, I need to learn 50 chapters of biology, physics, and chemistry by next month, and my parents will be disappointed and my life will be ruined, the security guard completely panics. The amygdala screams, danger, ghost, tiger, fire, this is too much pain. It immediately floods your system with stress hormones and down the prefrontal cortex, the illogical planning part of your brain. Your brain forces you to avoid the blocks to save you from the perceived threats. But when you use the momentum blueprint, you whisper to your brain, hey, we aren't doing anything scary today, okay? We are literally just going to look at a small diagram of a plant leaf for just 3 minutes, okay? Now the security guard looks at this request, sighs with relief, and says, oh, a diagram of a leaf? That's not a tiger, at least. That's perfectly safe. Carry on. You have to act like a ninja. You must stealthily sneak past your own brain's panic response using micro commitments. Now, the illusion of the perfect plan. Here is a profound truth that you must engrave on your mind. Action creates clarity. Clarity does not create action. Are you getting it? Let me repeat. Action creates clarity, and clarity does not create action. The vast majority of students wait for the perfect plan before they begin. They spend 3 weeks researching the best textbooks on Reddit. Yeah, they spend 4 days making an elaborate color-coded Excel spreadsheet of their study timetable. They buy expensive ergonomic chair and noise-cancelling headphones. They do all this and they spend 0 actual minutes reading the material. See, planning is often procrastination wearing a suit and tie. Let me repeat it. It's a profound statement, okay? Planning is often just procrastination wearing a suit and a tie. It feels like work, but it produces absolutely no results. When I was sitting in front of the Adobe Premiere Pro in that studio, I did not have a master plan for how to edit a cinematic documentary using only the knuckles of a paralyzed hand. If I had waited until I had a perfect plan, I would still be sitting in that studio silent room today also. I just pressed the letter A. Then I fumbled around and found B. Eventually, after days of frustrating trial and error, I found the enter key. And that changed absolutely everything. The path only appeared because I started walking blindly. So, as we wrap up this masterclass, my friend, I want you to pause and do something for me. I want you to physically look at the pile of books, the laptop, or the notes sitting on your desk right now. Look at the thing you have been avoiding all week. Look at it closely. It is not a mountain. It is just bound paper and ink. It is just plastic and silicon. It does not have a spinal cord injury like mine, yeah? It does not have a personal vendetta against you also. It is entirely lifeless. It is just sitting there, waiting for you to conquer it. I did not conquer that cold plastic keyboard in one day. I conquered it one agonizing, shaking tap at a time. Yeah, just one agonizing, shaking tap at a time. Step by step. Today, I stand before you, sit before you in my wheelchair as Raghurama Bhatt, your memory coach on wheels, and I have built a brand. I have mentored students in my Advanced Memory Mastery Bootcamp, and I have created content that reaches thousands. My hands still might not work perfectly, but my mind is razor sharp, and my momentum is absolutely unstoppable. You do not need a superhero to pass your exams. I meant you need not be a superhero to pass your exams or achieve your dreams. You do not need Superman motivation. You just need to be a person who adamantly refuses to have a 0 day. So, I ask you right now, what is your one tap today? Is it simply opening the textbook and reading the title of the chapter? Is it writing your name at the top of a blank practice test? Is it finally taking that phone, walking into the kitchen and putting it in a drawer? Yeah, so that it becomes very difficult to reach. Whatever it is, I want you to write it down now. Do tell me, yeah, do tell me you will do it tomorrow. I mean, do not tell me you will do it tomorrow. Tomorrow is an incredibly busy place where nothing ever gets done. So now is wide open. Now is yours for the taking. The power to change your life is not hidden in a motivational speech, my friend. It is not hidden in the perfect schedule also. It is certainly not hidden in tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't exist, my friend. It's a liar. Your power lies entirely in the tiny, imperfect, immediate act of starting. So, my friend, go poke your keyboard. Go open your book. Start building your change and never break it. Well, I'm tired now. I'll see you up in the next episode. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a good day.